Hey, welcome into this weekend's edition of the After the Show. Made it to Daytona weekend. Welcome to it.
Honey, we're home.
Exactly. Now, not exactly home, because home would probably put us in the PA booth at Daytona, but that's another story entirely. That's a rant for a later day. I'm working on it. One of these days, I'm going to really go off on this.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
I'm just going to leave it at that. But that being said, yes, it is Daytona weekend here. Camping World Truck Series ran last night. Sorry about Brett Holmes. Brett Holmes looked like he had a really, really strong truck, and that was even after having a problem, as you had mentioned, during the main show, during practice. And they were able to fix that truck, and they were able to jump that thing up into the top 10 before having a problem on pit road where what'd you say it did?
It was a transmission issue.
So it fried the transmission effectively. So he'll be back. Don't worry about that. Las Vegas is his next opportunity. Xfinity Series runs today. Not sure whether I'm going to expect anything much different from what we usually get out of the Xfinity Series.
No, I've said it all along, and I'm still going to say with it, Colleague will again sweep the super speedway races this year.
There you go. That brings us to the Daytona 500 for tomorrow, and practice is going on right now. And we talked about how much slower the cars were during the main show. And Matt and I kind of zeroed in. We kind of figured it probably had something to do with a couple of things. Number one, yeah, they dropped the horsepower down from 2021 to 2022, but that's not the entire story. We kind of figured it had something to do with gearing. You have more.
Yeah. On the onboard telemetries that you can see that Fox will put out, and even NBC puts out, with the RPMs. Last year's car, it was anywhere from, I'm going to say from 87 to 8,900 sustained at a super speedway. Mm-hmm. I haven't even seen 80, I've just now seen 8,100.
RPMs are a lot lower, which means that the cars are being constricted by gearing.
Yeah, a lot.
So that's one of the main culprits. But I'm going to watch again. I like the new car in and of itself. I think it's a very sharp-looking car. I think the delineation between a Camaro and a Mustang, for example, is much more sharply in contrast than the previous car, which we just saw on the track last year.
Yep.
Even Toyota is doing a pretty good job with it. Still can't get used to that number placement, though. The more I look at the numbers and how far they've been moved forward, I still cannot get used to it.
There's only one team. And I've said it, and I've said it, and I've said it until I'm literally blue in the face.
And you and I are in agreement on this.
There's only one team. And the more I look at their second car, it's in close comparison. Trackhouse got it right.
Mm-hmm.
Trackhouse.
With the one car.
With the one car, they got it right.
Yeah, with Ross Chastain's number one car.
The 99 car is close. If it was the 9 car, it would be identical. It would be identical.
Much closer, yeah.
They've got theirs slid back further than the other ones, which offsets it and makes it look better.
Mm-hmm.
But hey.
Is what it is, and NASCAR apparently ain't listening to us, so, so be it. As slow as those cars are, though, it's going to be interesting. We've also noted, as we tend to in practice, that the teams tend to stick together. Stewart-Haas Racing cars going with each other, the Team Penske cars, and Wood Brothers, which is a satellite for them. They all gather up together. All the Hendrick Motorsports cars gather together. All the Joe Gibbs Racing cars gather together. Right now, well, last I saw, the leaders were the 4 Stewart-Haas Racing cars.
That has changed. You've got Harrison Burton, Joey Logano, and Austin Cindric now top 3.
There's your Team Penske with Wood Brothers.
10 minutes and 10 seconds left in practice.
So that could still change. The question is whether that's going to actually work. We really have only seen this work on a couple of occasions. Remember the old tandem 2x2 racing? You were able to get the teams obviously working together at that point in time. The only other time I've really seen these teams be able to take from practice where they gather together, be it 3 or 4 cars, however many, and be able to make it work on the track was Talladega when the Stewart-Haas Racing cars did it there. But even that didn't work all the way to the finish line.
And and they're trying to shuffle it out now this practice and final practice. The Penske cars are too, but they really can't find who's the best puller and who's the best pusher.
Yeah, that's the trick.
There's really no distinct correlation.
But I would imagine Ford going to go with Ford, Chevy with Chevy, and Toyota with Toyota, just like we would always expect them to do. That's going to bring us to the other topic where we ended the show, the main show. Talking about Andretti Autosport and their attempts to get into Formula One. Last year was an interesting year because Michael Andretti really started chirping very, very loudly about wanting to get into Formula One. And apparently he had talks with Doralton Capital about buying Williams, but Doralton Capital seemed very, very comfortable with owning the Williams operation, didn't want to let it go. Apparently he also talked to Gene Haas. You got to remember, for all intents and purposes, Haas F1 punted on 2021. They said, hey, listen, we've got a whole bunch of new rules and regulations coming in for 2022. Why are we going to spend a whole lot of money developing the 2021 car when we're just going to have to scrap the thing anyway and change all of this stuff for 2022? Let's just keep the crappy 2020 car for 2021, and we'll put all of our efforts into 2022. I'm really looking forward to the Haas F1-centered episode of Formula One Drive to Survive to see how that went over in the hallways throughout the course of the season. But on top of that, apparently Michael Andretti contacted Gene Haas about buying Haas F1, a controlling interest in Haas F1. Gene said no. He's still willing to give this whole Formula One thing a go. So that was out the window. So we ended up concentrating on the other Ferrari team, customer team, if you will, Sauber, which is well known now as Alfa Romeo because that's part of their sponsorship, title sponsorship. So they get their engines from Ferrari, and their sister company within the Fiat organization, Alfa Romeo, becomes the title sponsor. Well, apparently the talks got really, really serious between these two sides. And at one point in time, they had said, you can expect an announcement right around maybe the weekend of the U.S. Grand Prix at Circuit of the Americas last November. All of a sudden, they said, no, maybe next week before the Mexican Grand Prix. And then within 48 hours, I think, after the U.S. Grand Prix was run, I mean, they barely had the time to pack up and get the haulers across the border to get down to Mexico City for the Mexican Grand Prix. All of a sudden, we heard everything was off. And we were all like, what? We found out later why. It turns out that Alfa Romeo Sauber ownership was willing to let Michael Andretti come in and buy a stake in the team, but not a controlling stake in the team. And Michael Andretti said, I want to own it. I want to own and operate it. I want it to be mine. I'm not giving you a whole lot of money and saying, oh, go play with my money doing whatever you want. No, that's my money. I'm doing it. I understand that. So this week comes the news that he has filed an application with the FIA to start up his own team. Last time we saw a startup team was Gene Haas and Haas F1. That was for the 2016 season when they debuted. This would put 11 teams on the track, and we've heard rumors that there was this 11th team or that team that wanted to be coming in as a possible 11th team. I think Michael Andretti will actually do it.
Oh, yeah.
How much money is he laying out for this thing, though?
Well, for starters, just the entry blank. Just the entry blank. Just to file the application.
Mm-hmm.
$200 million.
Now, Michael Andretti started a separate organization where he was raising money for this, at the time, attempted purchase of a Formula One operation. And reports had that they had netted and grown that account to about $258 million. So that means that the application process alone ate up $200 million of that. Ouch. It'll be interesting to see what happens. If I'm Michael Andretti, though, I'm going to put myself in that position. I'll put you in this position as well.
Absolutely.
There's very little chance he's going to come in building his own engines. Very little chance of that.
There's no way it happens.
I'm not going to say no chance. I'm going to say that the chance, though, is 0.00001%. I mean, infinitesimally small, which means he's got to become a customer team. I doubt seriously he'll want to follow the Haas formula with how close Haas worked with Ferrari in getting themselves on the track, which did net results. The first 2 races, Haas F1 placed one car, at least, in the top 10 in the first 2 races they ever raced in. Okay? He'll want to follow that formula. He will not want to follow with Ferrari. So that leaves him Mercedes. That leaves him with Renault or Alpine. And it leaves him with Red Bull. I know who I'd go with.
I know who I would go with too, but
if they're willing to go with you.
Realistically, I see Renault.
That might be the realistic one, but if I'm Michael Andretti and if I get approved, which I kind of think he will be.
I don't see any reason why he wouldn't.
The Andretti name is still huge in Formula One. Remember, Mario was an F1 champion and a race winner. One of the last American racers ever, by the way, to win a race in Formula One. So the name is there. The name recognition's there. The name attraction is there for Formula One. I could see them approving this in a fairly rapid-fire manner as long as all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed and the finances work, which I think they will in the long run. I'm going to be bugging the daylights out of Red Bull. Because really they're only fielding engines for 4 cars. Their own Red Bull and their sister team, which used to be called Toro Rosso, which is now called AlphaTauri. They've got the capability to run those engines. And we saw where last year they figured it out, finally. Honda did. And they had power, they had speed, and they have a champion. Well, they've got a Constructors' Cup title. And a driver. Well, no, I take that back. They've got a driver's title. They didn't win the Constructors' Cup championship. That went to Mercedes. But still, they got a driver's title out of it, which means it's a stout engine. If I'm Andretti, man, that's the first call I'm making, and I'm calling back early and often. Because that's going to be the one I'm going to want. Mm-hmm. Renault, don't get me wrong, I think that they're good. I don't think they're great.
Yeah.
Well, time will tell on that. Then who do you get for drivers? Oh, that's right. We're still talking Colton Herta.
That guy. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Which would put an American driver back in Formula One.
Which, what I read yesterday, one of the potential investors that he's going to pursue, which took on the title ship sponsor of the Miami Grand Prix at the Miami International Autodrome.
I'm never going to get used to that. It's the parking lot of the Hard Rock Stadium.
Let's call it the Parking Lot Grand Prix.
There you go.
Better known as Gainbridge Life.
Mm-hmm.
Who is sponsored by Gainbridge Life?
That's right, too.
That would be Colton Herta.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I could see that.
I could realistically see that, too. Does Alexander Rossi take a foray back into it? Don't
maybe
know. But I could see more realistically a F1 European guy paired up with an American guy to make the team.
But here's the thing. And let's assume that driver number 1 is Colton Herta. It seems a pretty easy assumption. Mm-hmm. Who would have guessed that the first American driver in Formula One, really since Alexander Rossi, but we'll say first likely competitive American-born Formula One driver, would not be sitting in a Haas F1 entry?
Puzzling.
I honestly believe that Haas F1 would have an American-based driver long before anyone else. Because if you think about it, Haas F1 came in at a time when Formula One was just really kind of restarting its efforts here in the United States.
Right.
And then you get Liberty Media, which is a United States-based company, coming in and getting commercial rights control over Formula One from Bernie Ecclestone, which adds even more U.S.-based ties. So now you get a U.S.-based team. Now you get a U.S.-based owner. Ever since Haas F1 even announced that he wanted to start up an F1 team, that was what, 2013, 2014?
Yes.
Somewhere in that area. Well, think about that. Almost a decade ago now. One of the constant questions that have been asked of Gene Haas and Gunther Steiner, their team boss, has been, you're looking at an American-based driver. I think they've done it right in the long run, in the fact that they're going after the best drivers for their particular circumstances, or in the case of Nikita Mazepin, he brought in a really big check. But I think they've done it largely right. They got Romain Grosjean to come in, Formula One veteran, knew what he was talking about. After year one, they turn around and they get another really good driver in Kevin Magnussen, two veteran F1 drivers who, kind of hard luck, I mean, truth be told. But knew what they were doing and were able to kind of guide Haas F1 through some of the things that they knew were going to be coming up, but Haas F1 didn't just because they were brand new.
Right.
Now you come in, you bring in an extremely talented rookie in Ferrari Development Academy driver Mick Schumacher, and like I said, then you bring the big check from Nikita Mazepin, who, yeah, he finished second in Formula 2 in 2020, but he basically was kind of known as Nikita Mazepin in 2021 in Formula 1.
Yeah, Mazepin, yeah.
He's going to have to grow up big time because a check is only going to get you so far. Results are what Gene Haas and Gunther Steiner are looking for. I don't care how big the check is. If you don't give the results on the track, you and your check are gone because I need a driver who can get me results.
Formula 2, Formula 1.
Way up there. Way up there. So it'll be interesting to watch that. But again, there's every possibility that if this Andretti Autosport ride, or Andretti Global now, as the Formula One team would be called if it is approved, might get an American driver before Haas F1 does.
Which is wild to think, but it's the realistic truth.
Now, I want to throw, I don't think this will happen. Okay? I honestly think that what Matt said probably comes true. Colton Herta goes. I honestly believe that. Andretti Global comes on board. They debut in Bahrain in the first season, or the first race of the 2024 season. I don't know what the car number is going to be, so I'll use car number 1. No, I take that back. That's for the champion. Car number 2 is filled by Colton Herta. Car number 3 is filled by veteran F1 driver, your name here. But let's throw this out just for fun. There's another IndyCar driver who's made a lot of noise about saying, you know what, I think F1 would be a pretty cool thing to try. His name is Pato O'Ward.
I was thinking somebody else. I was thinking that guy that resides in Hendersonville, Tennessee, better known as Joseph Newgarden.
He's talked about it as well, but Pato O'Ward, right after the Colton Herta situation came out, Pato O'Ward was making a lot of noise about, man, I think F1 would be really, really cool. We'll put Joseph Newgarden in there. Any of those three, either one of those two drivers, along with Colton Herta. U.S.-based team in Andretti Global with 2 U.S.-born drivers?
I could see that, but here's going to be the kicker with Pato O'Ward.
I will say this. I don't think it'll happen, but
here's going to be the kicker with Pato O'Ward.
He's got to get out of his contract at Dover McLaren SP first.
McLaren will snatch him before anybody else does.
You know that. So, no, I don't think it'll be O'Ward. Newgarden might be an interesting thought. He'd still have to get out of a contract, too, though.
I see Newgarden before I see O'Ward.
He'd have to get out of a contract, too.
That McLaren tie.
Yeah, he'd have to get out of a contract, too.
Yeah.
Newgarden. But I could, it would be, that would be an interesting storyline.
Yes.
Going into the 2024 season, if he could pull off getting 2, and let's face it, these are 2 pretty talented kids. I mean, Newgarden's already got 2 IndyCar titles, and Colton Herta was battling for one last year.
Yep.
That could be interesting to see. So we'll be keeping an eye on that here, and of course we'll be keeping an eye on Haas F1 because how much longer does Gene Haas put up with this? He's already said he knew about 2021. He was willing to take the patient approach knowing that 2022 was coming. But if they have a subpar year this year, after all the promise of 2021 and the 22 car coming, if they have a subpar year, and I'm saying, yeah, okay, let's say they score points, but if they still finish in the basement or they only finish, say, 9th, how much noise do we hear about Gene Haas saying, you know what, I might be done?
Probably a little bit louder than a bird chirp, but not as loud as a crow call.
Okay, so you don't think it's imminent yet?
If 2022 is an absolute bust, which
Okay.
the way they've been performing of late, I'm going to say it's better than 50% odds. I hate to say it, but I'm being truthful.
Mm-hmm.
I could legitimately see if Haas says, you know what, peace out. I could see Andretti buying the assets of Haas
Oh, sure.
for the team.
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Buying the assets of it, taking the team, basing the team not in England, but in the U.S.
Oh, I could easily see that.
And the last I checked, there's a pretty sizable building that's got Haas F1 on the side of it that I know sitting in Kannapolis, North Carolina.
Yeah, we've seen it. We were there. We were on the grounds. We didn't get the chance to go into it because it was Labor Day.
Labor Day.
I almost said Memorial Day. It was Labor Day weekend. We didn't get the chance to go in it, but we saw the building on the outside. It's, for those of you who want to know, sitting right next door to the facility known as Stewart Haas Racing. A lot of eyeballs, most notably Gene Haas's, are going to be glued to the race in Bahrain and the first several races of this 2022 season in Formula One. Gene Haas catches me as one of those guys, and I know he got his start in NASCAR and he was kind of a backmarker for a while until he got paired up with Tony Stewart. He's not going to mess with a loser over there in Formula One, not for long. Again, he understood what was coming in 2021. He agreed to the punt. Now he's expecting results. Now he's expecting things to start turning back around to a couple of years ago, three seasons ago. You know, back when they were battling for 4th in the championship standings. I don't think he's going to get that this year, but if he could climb out of the cellar and be battling for 8th and 7th, I think he would understand we're on the right trajectory.
Right.
If they're still sitting in the basement after this year, Gene Haas is going to be one mad Formula One owner. Period.
Yep.
A lot of eyeballs on Haas F1 and Formula One this year.
Yep.
And Andretti's going to keep that up because, believe me, that's going to be a massive storyline until the FIA says yay or nay on his application. We'll keep you updated right here on this show. Daytona 500, again, practice. Practice tells you some things. Tells me that the Fords still have a whole lot of speed because they know how to work together, and the Chevrolets are still trying to figure out, and the Toyotas are still trying to figure out how to work together.
Not one Toyota hit the track.
There you go. So we'll see. Tomorrow, Daytona 500. Season's here for NASCAR and the NHRA and Formula E. IndyCar coming, Formula One coming, and we'll be in full blast. And we got you covered on it right here. On this particular show, don't forget about us, Championship Racing Network. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on Instagram. Am I missing one? Nope. No, we don't do TikTok.
Don't forget about In the Zone.
Don't forget about our own YouTube page. Go to YouTube, look up CRN Live, which you're looking at right now. Tell your friends. And also don't forget about our website, crnradio.us.
Very important there.
And then John said, don't forget about In the Zone. In the Zone is where we sponsored the virtual racing, a late model race in April at Richmond. We'll keep you updated on that.
Virtual Richmond Raceway.
Yes. But we have a connection to it, so that's why we chose it. So yeah, we're looking forward to all that. We want to thank the guys at In the Zone. Who knows, maybe we can have them on at some point in time in the near future. We might give that a shot. So we thank them for allowing us to be a title sponsor. It's going to be a lot of fun. And we thank you for checking us out here on the After the Show. We'll be back again next week. Don't forget, 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central Time next Saturday morning for the 2-hour-long show. And then you'll join us, hopefully, afterwards on the After the Show right here for the Championship Racing Network.
See ya.